I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
There we go.
There we are.
Y'all, it's about that time again. It's time for the Magician's After Show right here on AfterBuzz TV. Steph, I'm so glad that we're back.
We're reunited,
so happy,
baby.
reunited. Of course, that always feels like time moves so much slower when we're not on the show together.
I don't want a life without co-hosting with Ty.
Exactly. Y'all, we are talking season 5, episode 4 of The Magicians. That is Magicians Anonymous. We're gonna be talking about Kady and Dean tripping balls for the entire episode. We're gonna be talking about Finn and Margo going at it to determine the next Centurion Guard, and of course, we get introduced to some brand new gods. We thought we were done with gods.
I know.
You know?
I thought they were gone.
We got some old ones. We got some new ones. We got a whole lot, y'all. Before we get into it, to my left, of course, you can see her on Star Wars News, as well as various other shows. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Sabraw.
Hello, everyone. So excited to be back.
Absolutely. What a fun episode.
Yeah, it was
this
fun.
was. Like, I mentioned a little bit about Kady and Dean tripping, and I love what The Magicians does where they find reasons to have completely different episodes.
Honestly, yes. And they're like, how do we just make this a little more psychedelic than normal TV? Oh, let's drop acid.
Right, exactly.
I'm here for it.
Let's have a whole realm that's basically governed by the dude. You know?
Actually.
So good. Oh, so good. But yes, so much happened. That was another thing we talked about before we went live. This was a very dense episode, very tightly packed. There was usually, for when I'm doing my notes, I'll kind of count off the subplots for organizational purposes, and there's like 5 different things kind of that we're following over the course of the episode.
Yeah. A lot of different separation. They did that last episode as well. It seemed that's always kind of the path the magicians take,
Sure.
is following groups of people. But this one, I feel like there was even more separation.
Exactly. Normally, I can divide my paper into quadrants. Boom, nice 4 neat little subplots.
This was schizo.
We got a whole lot. We got a whole lot going. But yeah, what did you overall thoughts of the episode? Did you like this episode?
It wasn't my favorite. There was a lot of great elements. I think that I love that they had to do acid to go to find some of the answers they were looking for. I love the librarian scene where they're trying to steal information, everybody's books. I think there's a lot of great moving parts, but it was kind of, I don't know if it was in the editing. It just felt kind of cut sporadically, and things would switch mid-sentence, and I was like, what's happening?
I think, yeah, one of the challenges of following so many people and so many things all at once is that when you come back to a group of characters or to a subplot, you run the risk of forgetting what's happening with everyone else. You know, like I found myself when they would go back to Alice and Zelda and the Visigoths, I found myself like having kind of forgotten, like, oh yeah, there's that, because there's also Kady and Dean hallucinating, and there's also, you know, Elliot and the Dark King and their whole chemistry, which we'll obviously talk more about. Absolutely. But yeah, and so it's a lot to keep up with, but we're gonna break it all down. You know what, we've talked enough about it. Let's talk about everything with Kady and Dean, because I love Dean Fogg so much. He might be like my favorite character in The Magicians.
They've done such a good job of making him so dimensional and so human, you know, like he's very flawed, but you love him because his good qualities are great, and he's very honest with himself. And even in those final moments where he's like, I'll be the one to be tripping for the rest of my life,
man,
that was a really beautiful moment.
Right.
It mixed in the irony of this scene with just that eye to eye between him and saying this was deep. Mm-hmm. So I liked it.
Sure.
I don't want him to be gone though.
I know,
want him
me
to
neither.
Keep showing up.
Him and those tie knots. That's one of the things that I've latched onto since the beginning of the show. Is he's always rocking. Have you ever noticed that the tie knots that he rocks? The Trinity knot, y'all. If anyone's rocking the Trinity out there. That weird, like,
Can we talk about how awesome it is, the idea that all of our socks are on a beach with everyone tripping on acid?
That's one of those things. I feel like that's been discussed in things before, where those socks go.
I need
love
my
this.
Frida Kahlo socks. I only have one pair.
Do you have
I
those
need
too?
Them. Please send them over. If I have to drop acid, let me know.
Right, exactly. But yeah, this whole sequence was it was beautiful. It was colorful. That's another thing that I think, you know, especially in Fillory, it gets it seems like it gets kind of locked into this very muted kind of color palette. There's a lot of grays, there's a lot of blacks, there's a lot of beiges. This sequence was so colorful, you know, not only with just like the bunnies and stuff, but like the bubbles that they were seeing, things like that, you know?
So colorful. I wanted to be there.
Right, exactly.
No, seriously, I'm like, this is how easy I am, how much of a consumer I am, that you just present me something really beautiful in an episode. I'm like, hey, maybe acid.
If they could turn this whole sequence into a pop-up on the pier, on the Santa Monica Pier, the way they did with like Stranger Things and the fair,
Dude,
I'd be there for sure.
Also, side note, shout out to all of you in the chat right now. Thank you for rocking with us.
Absolutely.
Billie Jean Girl, Steven, John, Paul, Carmen Cortez, Gratian Ryan, Renji90998 will continue to shout you out, especially as it pertains to our conversation.
Let me give a shout out to Renji, because Renji's been here since the OG, since season
Magicians,
1.
gang.
Like I remember
Let's go.
like Carrie Lane, shout out to Carrie Lane when she was leading this panel, shouting out Renji. So like props for the loyalty. If you're watching us on YouTube, remember to hit that like button, leave us a comment, all that stuff.
Yes.
Keep this conversation going. If you're listening on iTunes, hey, we appreciate you all the same. Download, comment, review, subscribe, rate 5 stars if you're nasty. Get this conversation going.
Yes, we're all nasty. You know that you're nasty, so hit that like button right now. You know it.
But yeah, and so of course, Kady is the one to be clinging to responsibilities. So she can't be the one.
So I really do love the way that they depict real life scenarios.
Sure.
One of which being addiction, and that when you are truly addicted, you are really chasing that high, and that never goes away. You can learn to stay sober, but that chase is really hard to extinguish.
Right.
Which is they're always very sensitive and spreading. They do it in a way that kind of spreads knowledge at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kudos.
So I'm interested to see. Yeah, now that she knows that the book depository rather is in Hell's Kitchen, I'm interested to see where that goes from here. Let's talk about over in Fillory, Margo, Josh, and Fen kind of determining who the next Centurion Guard's going to be for the Dark King, and also finding out a little bit more about Fen and Josh's relationship as well. What did you think of all this?
Well, so we didn't really get Fen and Josh this episode, but I do think that I was thinking about this on the car ride, because seeing Margo on her own, I was like, I think I want her to have a different love interest. Like, I feel like it was a good way for her to be like, you know, it's been 300 years for him.
Sure.
Maybe I need to be separated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I loved Margot's entire mission this episode, and especially the use of her eye. I love when we get a good eye scene.
Yeah, definitely. I think I had rewatched the fight scene between Margo and Fen, so it's still, the last several episodes is still very, very fresh to me.
No, well, it's still fresh to me. I might have killed you too, Fen.
But that the Margo using the fairy eye reminded me a lot of the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards.
Oh,
with like finding like
it's on the scene where they pick something off the floor. Are you talking about?
No, when Christoph Waltz, when he like goes to the farmer's farm.
Yes, and they're underneath, which it was such a scary moment, and you could tell Margo she is like me. We are here to protect women and people who don't have the voice, and we have to be destroyers about it, and that's just the way it is. But you could tell she was really conflicted, because sometimes you have to play the long game, and she couldn't out herself right then.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm very curious to see where that goes, and where her kind of relationship is with fairies, and how they fit into this version of Fillory, you know?
Same.
Yeah.
Definitely has to do with the Dark King.
Of course.
There's no way, especially how powerful he is. How are you that powerful? We already, and we'll talk about the Chatwin introduction. I don't think we're going to get a second one, which had been some of our predictions that he might be Chatwin related.
Oh, that the Dark King might be?
Yeah, I think maybe he's fueling the fairies for power. Something's going on where they're hunting them because she was hiding.
Right. It's very, the symbolism is very clear to see, so I'm
now it's like, I get why the Queen Fairy was so ruthless.
Right.
Because all of y'all have been killing and pillaging the fairies for power instead of letting them be. Of course, they're going to come back ruthless.
Right, exactly. So we mentioned the Dark King. Let's talk about him appointing Elliot as kind of official magician and sort of defender of of the throne, basically.
I know. And he's like, where'd you learn that? He's like, just saving the world multiple times.
Yeah. Elliot's kind of in this position where he has to, find out more about the Dark King and his game is.
This is Elliot's job. If he can somehow get dirt while being sexual, sign Elliot up. Or Margo. They are the best at that. They are vixens, and I love it. And I know we need to get a Dark King and Elliot sex scene.
And yeah, exactly. Like at this point, that can't not happen this season within the next probably 2 or 3 episodes, I imagine. And I imagine that's where, obviously we'll talk about it in predictions. That's got to be where the dirt comes out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Something's up with the Dark King. You don't just get that powerful. Wonder where he's fueling it from. I think Elliot, he'll end up being in an implicated position.
Sure.
I just wonder how, because there's so many shades of evil.
Of course,
What kind of evil is the Dark King?
Well, and I think the last episode when we were kind of introduced and we got to spend almost an entire episode with him before we realized, I think that's kind of part and parcel with it is letting us see these shades of gray, I feel like I've said on the show before, but all of history's villains have thought that they were the protagonist of their own story, so.
But it seems like this guy is setting up himself to look like the White Knight.
Oh, of course.
Like that whole streaming
and
scene.
That's every time I see the Takers, I'm like, this is all like.
And you're the only one.
Exactly. Yeah, he's pulling all of the strings here,
bro.
Right.
Smart. But I'm not falling for it.
But once the cameras are off. Exactly.
Yeah, he's like snorting fairy dust. He's doing something.
But I love that idea of being the hero when the quote unquote cameras are on,
It's like reality TV in the magic realm.
Exactly. Which, of course, the magicians would find a way to kind of make that happen.
It is kind of creepy when you put it into a perspective, like the show, that Big Brother vibe, where they're all watching, people died.
Right.
And they're and Elliot's waiting for a plot twist.
Right, exactly, yeah. And I think that the symbolism there, could be, illustrated as well. Like the fact that screen, just like it is on TV, that kind of desensitizes you.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. I'll have to
King
rewatch
Lazy
this.
says, I already knew the Takers are a type of fairy.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see that. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I guess, but wouldn't you be wanting to get something out of them?
Right.
Or maybe he's just using them to look good.
I don't know.
No. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes. Let's talk about Julia and the reemergence of the binder. Who we haven't seen in a very long time.
The binder. I love him.
Right? I love the way he talks, the way he kind of narrates.
Matt Frewer
from Max Headroom, right?
And also Orphan Black, which is one of my favorite shows.
There
and
you
I
go.
know that people who like The Magicians would like Orphan Black if
of
you
course.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love the book. I think it's a really funny twist and interesting that the way his character is written, I'm all for. But you knew he was so done with Julie. He's like, what happened now?
Oh, absolutely.
We said we were done with this.
Right. So like we talked about at the top of the episode, we're obviously introduced to old faces like the binder, but also new faces like Clarion, the goddess of melody.
Oh, Great actress, because was she annoying? Yes.
Where has she? Do I know that actress from somewhere? Where I feel like she looks very familiar.
I think so. Let's see if I can find it.
But that dynamic, the fact that it's a goddess that wants to become human, I thought was such a clever inversion of the arc that we've seen Julia kind of traversing this whole time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, she looked really familiar.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the gods don't have an actual sense of music. What a shame that she gets to understand it but doesn't get to feel it. That sucks.
Right. And I think that also just speaks to like what does it mean to feel music, you know? Like you can hear it, you can listen to it. What does it necessarily mean to really be able to feel it? I thought that was kind of a fascinating concept to really spell out, you know?
Yeah. Okay, I found her.
Yes.
Clarion. Oh, Juliet Goglia.
Billy,
Okay.
Hey guys, it's Brianna from the booth
Hey,
here.
Yes,
Bree.
Bree.
Billie Jean Girl put in the chat that she's from Easy A.
Oh,
my God.
okay.
Of course. Absolutely.
Wow.
That's first. I love Easy A. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
She's also apparently, and Bryce has learned to That's So Raven as well.
Okay.
If
Okay.
any That's So Raven fans in here.
There we go.
Me,
You know.
always. I just had a vision.
But yeah, so of course that's where we kind of, because Penny, you know, all while this is happening is still suffering from this signal that he got from Merritt. So that's when we get that awesome, that choice, you know, like of course what he kind of goes on to explain as instant karma, where Julia has to make that decision to save either him or the world.
You know, I don't know if I love that.
Right.
It doesn't even make sense to me that a goddess can only fix you by taking away what kind of makes you you.
Sure.
It kind of pissed me off. And
Yeah.
I hope there's a way he gets his powers back, because I feel like of all people's powers, he had to spend the most time and energy in mastering his powers.
Right.
And finally did, and he was like debilitated his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Finally had a chance to, has had a few years now where he can use it properly, and now it's taken away, and I get the idea of karma, but
Sure.
give it back.
Yeah.
Give it back.
The symmetry, yeah, I get that, but I'm also I wasn't crazy about the fact that Julia was just saying like we could just find another way to save the world.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't know, it seems I get it, but it seems short-sighted for such a wise character, you know?
Yeah, I do think that it was smart. Ended up being smart writing with Zelda,
Right.
having the answer, and that fit well. It seemed kind of like too much of an ultimatum for episode 4.
Right. And the fact that she was doing it just because she could, like,
You don't deserve to be a goddess. What? That's such an abuse of power.
Right.
An eye for an eye.
Yeah. So yeah, we talked about Zelda. Let's talk about Alice and Zelda and the Visigoths. I think that was the only other thing that I felt was maybe a little bit crowded about this episode, is that there were a lot of new faces, there were a lot of new kind of enemies, and it felt like the Visigoths and I'm sorry, the leader of the Visigoths was it Terrence?
I know who you're talking about. Huh.
But yeah, I thought that yes, Terrence, the Visigoth overlord.
Yes.
I was interested in that character, but it felt like too much for this episode, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are they? I want more information other than you just giving me exposition.
And I think that's why, is because I was so interested in
It's interesting.
in learning about the Visigoths and about this idea of raiding these sort of cultural hotspots, that I thought it was almost doing them a disservice to make it such a small part of one episode. You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, who knows? We don't know if they might come back later on in the season, but it seems like they might have just been kind of shuffled away in the name of like, okay, now we've got to move the moon, you know?
Now we have to move the moon.
Now we have to move the moon.
Damn it.
No big deal.
Yeah, I thought it was actually really interesting, and would have loved to have that expanded on. I think that it ended up playing pretty well. I think that Zelda ultimately making that decision and the conversation between her and Alice was a meaningful one.
Sure.
And a great character arc for her to be like, they're left behind, but that doesn't like eat what you want to keep.
Yeah, that
Screwing
sentiment
up.
was beautiful. Absolutely.
Yeah, like get Zelda. Let's get it together, girl.
Exactly.
We got a world to save. I need you.
We got to move to a moon to move.
Yeah, we got a moon to move. Simple as that.
Exactly, yeah. So much happened. As you can see, Adrian Snow's not here with us this week. She'll be back next week along with her wizard/witch of the week. But here with news and gossip, Steph Sabraw.
Yes.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Such exciting news, you guys. Stella Maeve, obviously Julia, and her husband, Deadly Class's Benjamin Wadsworth, welcomed their daughter, Jo Jezebel. So we're going to pull up an article from People. She's been posting photos of her 12-month mark, of the entire process, and finally they welcomed a healthy baby. So we are so happy for Julia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really
Congrats
cool.
to them, for sure.
Mama Maeve.
There we go.
And that's the end of my news and
There we
gossip.
go. Absolutely.
Thank you for joining me.
And of course, it wouldn't be an episode of the Magicians After Show without a trip to predictions.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Got the quick one. Steph, where are we going from here? What are you predicting?
Okay, main prediction is that Elliot and the Dark King are going to get it on.
Of course.
They're going to get into some trouble. And we are going to see Margo, I think, collude with the fairy.
Oh, okay.
Figure out what's been happening. She's going to get the dirt at the same time. Maybe meet at the same time that Elliot finds a little bit of dirt. And
Right.
they have to make a decision.
Interesting. I think, yeah, to that point, I feel like we're going to get that moment, that she's all that moment where Elliot lets it slip what his real intentions are. I think we're going to get that scene. He's going to let it slip like offhandedly. And that's going to obviously put Margo in some pretty deep shit with the Dark King, of course.
Yes. Also, Plum Chatwin.
Yes, Plum Chatwin, of course.
Real quickly.
Merritt, yeah, she reveals herself as a Chatwin. Where do we think that's going?
I don't know, but because as soon as she was introduced, I was like, I either don't trust you,
Right,
or
exactly.
you have some real bad demons running after you.
Well, it's like she said. I think she said like the Chatwins are kind of cursed, right?
Cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah, which sucks.
Right.
That's like an Oedipus complex.
Yeah.
Like you guys are just all screwed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. I think that's an interesting plot point. She's gone right now.
Do you think she's glitching over to Fillory, or maybe a part of Fillory that we haven't seen yet?
Maybe.
Because that's where I'm wondering when we saw Penny come back, he was all dusty and bloody and stuff. So I'm interested to see where he went and where she went.
Yeah.
You know?
We'll see.
Yeah, but I'm also wondering, do you think we've seen the last of the Takers now that we're kind of in this sort of Dark King and Centurions versus fairies kind of zone?
There's some people in the chat thinking maybe that they're fairies that have been turned or something
Interesting,
like that.
okay.
So if it has to do with that, then maybe. But if they're just ego boost
Right.
for him, then yeah, they're
Because
probably
I started,
the last.
the more I saw the Takers, the more I wondered if they were just like illusions,
Yeah.
if they were real at all. You know, I was wondering if it was an I Am Legend thing where like the legend of the Takers was Elliot and Alice like taking things from Fillory.
Gratian Ryan in the chat, I predict that the Dark King is a descendant of Quentin and is feeding off the fairies, is creating the convergence.
I dig that.
Boom, boom, boom.
Y'all share those theories, no
Also
matter
hit-
how weird they are. Share them with us.
Hit that like button.
Yes.
You guys there's a bunch of you in the chat. I'm going to need you to hit that like button, please. We love you for rocking with us.
Absolutely. Hit that like button. We'll be right back here, same time, same channel. Next week, we'll be talking Season 5, Episode 5. Steph, where can they find you?
You can find me on all over social media at Steph Sabraw, Sabraw.
There you go. You can find me, as always, on all forms of social media at Ty Matthews PMA, as well as Tuesdays on XPOC12360. But guys, until next week, peace.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV.
Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.